The most revealing part of Ben & Jerry's tension with its parent company may be this. The deal designed to protect the brand's mission may also have left ultimate control somewhere else. Why buy a rebel brand, then struggle with what made it distinctive? That's the real business question here. When Unilever acquired Ben & Jerry's in 2000 for roughly $326 million, it wasn't just buying an ice cream company, it was buying a brand with unusual cultural value, a company known for pairing consumer products with public advocacy. And that's the key to this story. The most important issue may not be any single lawsuit or executive dispute. It may be the structure of the original acquisition itself, an arrangement that appeared to protect Ben & Jerry's social mission, while still leaving the parent company with major control over the broader business. A lot of people hear this story and assume the simple version, big corporation buys values-driven brand, then eventually overrides it. But the more interesting version is more structural. What if the conflict was built into the deal from the beginning? What if the brand had mission protections, but not full control over the systems that matter most in a corporate dispute? That's what makes this such a strong case study. Back in 2000, Unilever agreed to an unusual setup. Ben & Jerry's would retain an independent board tied to protecting the company's social mission and brand integrity. On paper, that looked extraordinary. It signaled to customers, employees, and the founders that this would not be a standard acquisition where the acquired company simply disappeared into a larger portfolio. And that mattered, because Ben & Jerry's brand value was never just about flavor. A meaningful part of its appeal came from the belief that it stood for something beyond the product. That belief was part of the asset. Years later, the corporate context changed. Unilever announced plans to separate its ice cream business, and Ben & Jerry's became part of that broader ice cream grouping alongside brands like Magnum, Cornetto, Breyers, Talenti, Yasso, and Klondike. That made the contrast much clearer. Inside a conventional portfolio of ice cream brands, Ben & Jerry's stands out. Most brands in that category do not come with a special governance structure designed to preserve a social mission or support public advocacy. Ben & Jerry's does. So the company is not just another label in the freezer aisle, it is a governance exception inside a large commercial system. That may sound abstract, but the conflict became more concrete through public legal disputes. Ben & Jerry's and Unilever have been involved in litigation tied to the brand's public statements and the scope of its independence. Public reporting and court filings have described disagreements over speech, governance, and control. Ben & Jerry's has alleged that its independence was being constrained. Unilever has disputed aspects of that characterization and has emphasized its own responsibilities as owner. That's when the story takes shape: speech, leadership, and control. And from a corporate perspective, the tension is not hard to understand. In public disclosures around the ice cream business, the company has indicated that Ben & Jerry's unusual governance structure can create reputational or operational challenges if the brand's actions or statements diverge from the broader group. That idea, misalignment, is really the whole case in miniature. From headquarters, independent political speech on polarizing issues can look like risk: legal risk, reputational risk, investor risk, and management complexity. But from the customer's point of view, that same independence may be part of the product. That's the paradox. The thing a parent company may see as a governance problem can also be the thing that made the brand feel credible in the first place. Ben & Jerry's was not just selling ice cream. It was also selling a reputation for saying things many brands avoid. If that independence weakens, the brand may keep the trademarks and the shelf space while losing some of the trust that made it distinctive. That is the boardroom lesson here. When companies acquire authenticity, they often assume they can preserve the upside while reducing the unpredictability. But in some cases, the unpredictability is part of the authenticity. Trying to manage it too tightly can change the asset itself. That brings us back to the original deal. Yes, the 2000 acquisition gave Ben & Jerry's unusual protections. It created a mission-focused board and preserved a degree of independence. But it did not give the brand full sovereignty over the larger levers that usually decide corporate conflicts: ownership, executive authority, capital allocation, and legal control. That may have been the hidden weakness. The structure made Ben & Jerry's look protected, but the parent company still controlled the broader machinery around it. So, when disputes emerged, the mission protections could matter, but only within limits. That is the real insight. Ben & Jerry's may not be a story of a deal that failed on paper. It may be a story of a deal that worked exactly as corporate ownership structures usually work, even while preserving the appearance of exceptional independence. In other words, the parent company could retain the economics, the trademarks, and ultimate control, while the brand retained a mission identity that was always vulnerable in a serious conflict. That's why this case matters beyond ice cream. It shows the difference between protecting a brand's image of independence and protecting actual institutional power. So the answer to the opening question is not just that a parent company bought a rebel brand and then regretted the rebellion, it's that the acquisition may have contained a built-in contradiction from day one. The brand's distinctiveness came from independence, but the ownership structure placed that independence inside a system it did not fully control. And once that contradiction became impossible to ignore, the brand risked losing part of the very quality that made it valuable. Do you still see Ben & Jerry's as authentic, or does a brand inevitably change once a parent company can influence what it stands for? If this made you think, subscribe for more business case studies.